I came home that Thursday night a little earlier than usual because I forgot the laptop charger in the hallway drawer and I had back-to-back Zoom meetings lined up the next morning. When I opened the front door, I wasn't expecting anyone to be home because Emma had texted me earlier saying she was going out with her coworkers to a new wine bar that opened downtown. Fair enough. I trusted her. We'd been married 6 years, had a rhythm, and even though the last couple of months felt a bit off, I chalked it up to stress from her new management role. But when I stepped into the hallway and took off my shoes, I noticed her coat, her favorite long beige trench coat, hanging on the wrong hook. That might sound stupid, but she was obsessive about it. Her coat went on the second hook from the left, always. Shoes neatly below. Tonight, the coat was half draped, half falling off the first hook, and her boots weren't even there. Out of curiosity, or maybe just instinct, I reached for the coat to put it on the right hook, and that's when it hit me. The smell. Not wine, not her usual lavender perfume, but something entirely different. Male cologne. Strong, woody, not cheap either. The kind that lingers. I stood there, holding the sleeve to my nose like an idiot, hoping maybe I was overthinking it. Maybe she hugged someone goodbye at the bar, maybe someone spilled something on her, maybe anything. But I'm not a complete fool. I knew that scent didn't just brush up against her. It had been close, like skin-on-skin close. I walked into the living room, and everything else looked normal. Couch was neat, TV was off, the throw blanket was folded, but there was a wine glass in the sink. Just one. And lipstick stained, which wouldn't be strange if she had actually gone out like she said. But the dishwasher was running, which meant she'd been here. Recently. I opened the fridge, takeout boxes from the Chinese place around the corner, 2 chopsticks resting inside, both used. We don't do leftovers, and she hates cold noodles. That meant dinner had just happened. Here. With someone else. When she finally walked in around 11:30, casually tossing her keys into the bowl by the door like she didn't have the smell of another man's cologne still clinging to her coat, I was already seated at the kitchen table with both chopsticks laid out on a napkin between us. "Hey," she said, too casually, slipping off her heels and kicking them toward the hallway without looking at me. "You're home early." I didn't respond right away. I just looked at the napkin between us and then back at her. Her eyes flicked toward it, then away, like it didn't register, but I saw her throat tighten. "Who'd you have dinner with?" I asked, calm, almost too calm. My voice didn't even sound like mine. She blinked, then smiled like I had asked about the weather. "Oh, just Abby from work. We grabbed some food before the bar." "That's funny," I said, leaning back, arms crossed. "Because there's a half-empty box of sesame chicken in the fridge and only 2 sets of used chopsticks. And unless you two like taking turns with each one, I guess that's not exactly a girl's night." There was a pause. She stared at the table, then at the sink, and then gave the smallest, most ridiculous laugh. "Okay. Yeah, I didn't go to the wine bar. I just didn't feel like being around people tonight. So I came home, ordered food, and watched a movie." "Alone?" I asked. "Yeah, alone," she said too quickly, too defensively. I nodded slowly, letting the silence do the work. "Then whose cologne is on your coat?" That's when the air changed. Her shoulders stiffened, her eyes darted toward the coat rack, and for a second, just a split second, I saw a flicker of panic on her face before she masked it with a fake kind of confusion. "What are you talking about?" "You know exactly what I'm talking about." She walked past me, grabbing the coat like it owed her money, sniffed the sleeve, and shrugged. "I don't smell anything." "Then maybe you should get your nose checked." "I think you're overreacting," she said, avoiding eye contact now, hanging the coat up properly this time, like that would undo whatever the hell had happened in it. That was the moment the floor started shifting under my feet. Not because I had proof yet, not because she confessed, but because I knew. She was lying. I knew that smell wasn't hers. I knew those chopsticks didn't belong to some ghost. I knew that she hadn't just decided to sit in silence and eat takeout by herself when 2 weeks ago, she told me she was starting a new diet. No carbs. No greasy food. She was suddenly very serious about her body again, like she was training for someone else's attention. But I didn't say any of that. Not yet. I just stared at her and let her walk past me like everything was fine. And as she disappeared into the bathroom and locked the door behind her, I sat back in the chair and exhaled, already feeling the next few days coming at me like a freight train. The next morning I pretended to be asleep when she got up, and I listened to every move she made. She showered, did her makeup like she always did before work, and I could hear the sound of her curling iron clicking on the bathroom counter. She even hummed a little while getting ready, as if she had nothing to hide. I laid there watching the ceiling, waiting for the door to close behind her, waiting for the sound of her car backing out. When it was finally quiet, I got up and walked straight to the coat rack. Her coat was gone. She didn't forget it. She didn't swap it for another one. She wore the same one with his scent still baked into it. I looked around the house, checked the trash, the sink, the counter. She'd cleaned up everything. No sign of the takeout boxes. Dishwasher emptied. Napkin gone. She wasn't just hiding something. She was trying to erase it. I spent the next few hours in a strange haze. I couldn't work. I couldn't focus. I made coffee and forgot to drink it. I paced around the kitchen, then the living room, then back to the kitchen. At one point, I just stood staring at the refrigerator like it owed me answers. I wanted to believe I was imagining it, that maybe I was reading too much into everything, but something deep in my gut wouldn't shut up. It wasn't just one thing. It was all of it. The coat, the food, the smell, the way she looked at me when I asked. Like she was calculating what I knew and what I didn't. By the afternoon, I decided I couldn't just sit around waiting for something to happen. I needed to know. I wasn't going to dig through her phone because I wasn't interested in reading some man's compliments or seeing their texts disappear in real time. I needed something better, something that couldn't be deleted or denied. So I checked the kitchen table where she always threw her receipts, business cards, anything she pulled out of her purse. I found a crumpled receipt from 2 nights ago, not from a wine bar, not from anywhere fancy. It was from a small grocery store 2 blocks away, time-stamped at 9:17 p.m. The same night, she said she was out with coworkers. I stared at it for a long time. Bread, eggs, 2 bottles of soda, a pack of condoms. I hadn't used condoms with my wife in years. I sat down at the table and stared at that last line until my vision blurred. There was no roommate, no sister, no friend that could explain that. She bought them. For someone. And it sure as hell wasn't for me. That night, I didn't mention anything. I cooked dinner like I always did. She came home smiling, complimented the pasta, and asked how my day was. I said it was quiet. I watched her eat, watched her laugh at something on her phone, and I tried to match the tone. I couldn't. Everything she said sounded rehearsed, like she was playing a role she hadn't practiced enough. I nodded through the evening, through the TV show she wanted to watch, through the fake stretch and yawn as she got up and said she was tired. She kissed me on the cheek and said, "Love you," like it meant something. I just said, "Sleep well," and waited for her to walk upstairs. The next morning, I told her I was going to take a long walk before getting to work. She didn't ask questions, just told me to take a jacket because it was chilly. I left, but I didn't go far. I crossed the street and circled back through the alley, standing just out of sight across from the house. I waited. At 10:11 a.m., a car pulled up. A compact sedan, blue, nothing flashy. She opened the door and walked out wearing that same beige coat. She didn't check her surroundings. She didn't hesitate. She got in, and the car pulled away. I memorized the plates before it turned the corner. I followed them the next day. I didn't even pretend to go to work. I parked at the gas station near the corner and waited. Same car, same time, same coat. She didn't notice me, and I stayed just far enough back to keep her in sight without being obvious. They drove for maybe 10 minutes and pulled into a small motel tucked behind a strip mall. One of those cheap places with faded signs and numbered doors that haven't been painted in years. She got out first. He followed. They didn't hold hands. They didn't talk. They just walked into room 14 and closed the door. I sat in my car for nearly 2 hours, engine off, windows cracked. My hands were shaking. I felt like throwing up. I wasn't shocked. I wasn't even sad. I was just cold, like someone had opened a window inside me and let something important escape. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just sat there, waiting for her to come out. When she did, around 12:47 p.m., her hair was tied differently. She looked down while walking. He held the door open for her, like some kind of gentleman. She didn't look back. She was home before me that night. Said she worked through lunch and barely had time to breathe. I nodded. Told her I had a long call that drained me and went upstairs before she could talk more. She didn't follow me. I laid in bed and stared at the ceiling again, but this time I didn't wonder if she was lying. I already knew. I didn't plan the moment, but I knew it would happen that weekend. There was only so much pretending I could stomach, and by Saturday night, I didn't want another polite smile or empty dinner conversation. She came down the stairs wearing that same coat again, the one she probably thought I'd stopped noticing, ready to go out with the same excuse I'd heard 3 weekends in a row. Her tone was casual when she said she was heading to Abby's for wine and movie night. I was sitting on the couch, pretending to scroll through my phone, but really I was waiting for her to lie to me again so I could finally end the performance. "You're going to Abby's?" I asked, not even looking up. She hesitated at the door, hand on the handle, then nodded like she was tired of repeating the same line. "Yeah, we're doing a little girl's night. I'll be back late, don't wait up." I stood up slowly, placed my phone on the armrest, and looked at her directly for the first time in what felt like weeks. She shifted slightly, like something in my face made her uncomfortable, but she didn't say anything. "Room 14 doesn't sound like Abby's place," I said, my voice even, not loud, not aggressive, just loud enough to cut the silence in the room. Her eyes didn't move at first, but her fingers loosened on the doorknob. She blinked twice, then finally looked at me. "What?" she asked, too flat to be genuine confusion, too rehearsed to be surprised. "You heard me," I said, stepping toward her. "Room 14. 2 days ago. Motel off 3rd and Main. Beige coat. Same one you're wearing now." She opened her mouth, but nothing came out. I watched her try to string something together, try to figure out what I knew and what I didn't, but she was too slow. "You've been sneaking around for at least 2 weeks. Probably longer." I continued, no emotion in my voice, just stating facts. "I followed you. I watched you walk into that motel with him. I know what you're doing, Emma. I know everything." She finally moved, stepping back from the door and closing it behind her like she realized she wouldn't be leaving right away. Her face changed. The fake casual expression melted into something harder to define. Part guilt, part irritation, part embarrassment. "You were spying on me?" she asked, folding her arms like she was the one who'd been wronged. "That's insane, you know that." "No, Emma," I said, trying not to laugh at how quickly she flipped the script. "What's insane is cheating on your husband and lying about it every single day like I'm too stupid to notice. What's insane is walking around our house like nothing's happened while you sneak off to cheap motels." She stepped toward me now, her voice rising, arms still crossed. "You don't understand what's been happening, okay? Things haven't been right between us for months. You barely even talk to me anymore. Everything's routine, everything feels mechanical. I didn't plan for this to happen, it just did." "No," I interrupted, holding up a hand. "Don't do that. Don't try to justify this by blaming me for your choice. You could have talked to me. You could have told me something was wrong. You chose this. You chose to lie, to cheat, to sit across from me at dinner and pretend we were fine. I didn't want to hurt you," she said, her voice cracking for the first time. "It wasn't supposed to be serious. It was just something I needed." "Something you needed?" I repeated, stunned at how casually she said it. "You needed to sleep with someone else? You needed to throw away our marriage like it meant nothing?" "It didn't mean nothing," she snapped back, eyes wet now, voice shaking. "You think I didn't feel guilty? You think this was easy for me? You felt guilty?" I asked, stepping closer until we were only a few feet apart. "Guilty people don't go back again and again. Guilty people don't smile and kiss their husbands goodnight after getting back from someone else's bed." She looked down, then away, jaw clenched like she was trying to keep it together. "I didn't know how to stop," she whispered. "You stopped by not starting in the first place," I said. "You stopped by respecting the vows you made. You stopped by acting like an adult and talking about your problems instead of escaping into someone else's pants." "I was lonely," she said suddenly, looking at me now, eyes red. "I felt invisible. You're here, but not really here. You bury yourself in work. You barely touch me anymore unless it's out of routine. I felt like I didn't matter." "So your solution was to cheat?" I said, incredulous. "To find some guy and sneak around like a teenager?" Her mouth opened again, but I was done listening. "You know what? I don't care why you did it anymore. That explanation doesn't matter. You made your choice, and now you're going to live with it." She didn't respond. She just stood there, breathing heavily, arms limp at her sides. For a moment, I thought she might collapse into tears, fall to her knees, beg me to forgive her. But she didn't. She just stood there, stuck between defiance and shame, too proud to fall apart, and too guilty to lie anymore. I turned and walked away, leaving her standing in the hallway with her coat still on. I didn't slam the door, didn't scream, didn't say anything else. I went upstairs and closed the bedroom door behind me, And for the first time in weeks, I felt something close to clarity. I didn't sleep that night, not because I was crying or lying in bed thinking about what went wrong, but because I was busy planning. She had handed me the truth like a broken plate, and I wasn't going to spend my time gluing it back together. I wanted her to feel what I felt, not just once, but every day until the memory of what she did stuck to her skin the way that cologne had stuck to her coat. The silence between us the next morning was loud, but I didn't engage. I cooked breakfast like I usually did, poured my coffee, and sat at the kitchen table while she walked around the house like a stranger trying not to be noticed. I could feel her waiting for me to bring it up again, to keep the fight going or start the crying. But I didn't give her anything. I wanted her confused, unsure of what came next. That afternoon, I called a lawyer. Not to file for divorce, not yet. I wanted advice. I explained the situation calmly, like I was talking about someone else's life, and the man on the phone told me exactly what I needed to hear. Since I already had some proof, and because the house was in my name before we got married, there were ways to make sure I came out of this ahead. I asked a few more questions, got the answers I needed, and hung up knowing exactly how to proceed. First step was to cut off access. She didn't know it, but I changed all the account passwords that evening. Netflix, bank, Amazon, even the damn grocery app she used to order wine and snacks, gone. I didn't say a word, just waited for her to notice. She tried logging into the joint account to pay a bill that night, and asked me why it was locked. I had to reset the passwords, I said, not looking up from my laptop. New security measures. Oh, she replied, and left it at that. She knew I knew why I did it, but saying it out loud would mean admitting she didn't deserve access anymore. That was the first hit. The second came 2 days later. I took a day off work and visited her office building while she was on lunch. I knew from past conversations where her supervisor sat and how strict her company was about professional conduct. I walked into the lobby with a manila envelope that had just enough screenshots printed out to show her name, the motel name, the timestamps, and a copy of that grocery receipt with the condoms circled in red ink. I walked up to the front desk and asked for her supervisor by name. When the woman arrived, I handed her the envelope without smiling. You might want to look into this, I said. Your employee is using sick days for motel trips during work hours. I didn't wait for a response. I turned around and left, knowing that I hadn't done anything illegal. I didn't make a scene, didn't accuse anyone of anything, just handed over some facts and walked out. That evening, Emma didn't say a word about work, and I didn't ask. But I saw the way her eyes kept flicking to her phone, the way she bit her lip at dinner, the way she couldn't sit still on the couch. She had either been confronted or knew something was coming. Either way, it worked. The third part was more personal. I started going out. I didn't make up stories, didn't offer excuses. I got dressed, left the house, came back whenever I felt like it, and said nothing. She didn't ask where I went, but I saw her checking the driveway when I returned, standing by the window pretending to fix the blinds or scrolling through her phone like she wasn't waiting. I let her wonder. I didn't go anywhere special, just a bar, a movie, sometimes a late dinner alone. But I wanted her to sit in the same silence I had for weeks, to feel the same paranoia, the same slow-burning doubt about who I might be with or what I might be doing. When I came back one night, and she was sitting on the couch with a half-empty wine glass and her eyes red, she asked softly, "Are you seeing someone?" I looked at her for a long second, shrugged, and walked past her. That was the answer. But the biggest blow was still coming. That weekend, we had plans to meet her parents for dinner, something we did every couple of months. She assumed we'd cancel, but I insisted we go. She looked surprised, even hopeful, thinking maybe I was coming around. We got there, sat through small talk, drinks, appetizers, and then I dropped it. In the middle of her father's story about his retirement plans, I leaned forward and said calmly, "Did Emma tell you about the guy she's been sleeping with at that cheap motel on 3rd? Room 14. Silence. Her mother's fork dropped. Her dad's face froze. Emma inhaled like she'd been punched. I didn't yell, didn't elaborate, didn't even raise my voice. No. I continued. That's strange. It's been going on for weeks. Maybe months. I figured you'd want to know, since you always said marriage was about honesty and trust. I stood up, looked at Emma, then at her parents, and said, "I'll leave you to it," before walking out. I drove home alone. She came back an hour later, didn't speak, didn't even take off her coat. Just sat in the kitchen like a kid who got sent to the principal's office. Her parents had called me twice already. I let it ring both times. 3 days passed after the dinner without a word exchanged between us. She moved around the house like a tenant waiting for eviction. I could hear her phone ringing at odd hours, probably friends or her parents, but she never answered it within my earshot. She didn't try to apologize. She didn't try to explain. She just lingered in the space between shame and fear, waiting for something to break the silence. On the fourth night, I came home a little after 10 and found her in the living room, lights dim, curled up on the far side of the couch with a blanket that wasn't even covering her properly. The TV was on, but muted, some crime documentary looping in the background. I stood in the doorway for a moment, and when she saw me, she sat up slowly, like she had rehearsed what she was about to say. "Can we talk?" she asked, not looking at me directly. I walked in and sat down at the opposite end of the couch. I didn't answer, just waited. "I don't expect you to forgive me," she said. "I know what I did. I know I destroyed something we built for years. I haven't been able to sleep. I can't eat. I feel sick all the time. I keep trying to find the moment where it all started to go wrong, but I don't even know anymore. You should have thought about that before you started lying." I replied, my voice low. "Now you're sitting here looking for reasons when all I ever asked for was the truth." She nodded slowly, eyes wet but no tears falling. "You're right. There's no excuse. I kept telling myself I wasn't happy, but I never told you that. I thought if I just ignored it, it would go away. Then someone showed me attention, and I leaned into it. I wasn't thinking about consequences. I was just thinking about how it felt to not be invisible for once." I let that sit in the air for a moment before responding. "You weren't invisible, Emma. You just stopped paying attention to what was already in front of you. You made yourself distant. I didn't walk away. You did. Every time you left the house, every time you looked at me like I was furniture, every time you decided not to speak up when something felt wrong, you were the one walking away." "I know," she said quietly. "I don't even know who I am anymore. I don't recognize the person who did this." "Well, I do," I said, finally looking her in the eyes. "I see someone who chose herself over everything we had. That doesn't just go away because you feel bad now." She sniffed, wiped her eyes, then sat up straighter. "So what now? Are we getting a divorce?" I leaned forward, elbows on my knees, and stared at the floor. "I haven't filed anything yet, but I've spoken to a lawyer. I'm giving it a few more days to think clearly." "You don't want to save this?" she asked, and for the first time, her voice cracked. "You don't want to try?" "Try what?" I asked, almost laughing. "Try to pretend that every time you leave the house I'm not going to wonder who you're with? Try to sleep next to you and not think about what you were doing in that motel room? You don't come back from this, Emma. You don't just hit a reset button and expect me to go along like nothing happened. I'll do whatever you need," she said quickly. "Therapy, counseling, anything. I don't want to lose everything because I was stupid and selfish." I leaned back and looked at her again, this time really seeing her, messy hair, swollen eyes, sitting on the edge of the same couch we used to sit on together watching dumb reality shows, laughing about things that didn't matter. Now everything mattered too much. "I'm not angry anymore," I said. "I thought I would be. I thought I'd break something, scream at you, make you beg for forgiveness. But I'm just tired. I don't want to rebuild something that you already burned down. I just want peace." She nodded slowly, the fight leaving her posture. "I'll move out." "Not yet," I said. "We'll figure out how to divide things. I'm not going to drag this into something nasty, but we're done pretending this can be saved." She stared at the coffee table for a long time, not speaking, then said softly, "I still love you." I stood up. "That's not enough." I walked upstairs, leaving her there in the dim light, surrounded by silence she'd created. I didn't slam any doors. I didn't cry. I just packed a small bag with clothes and my laptop and booked a room at a hotel nearby. I left her sitting in the same spot, eyes unfocused, fingers clutching the edge of the blanket like it could protect her from the truth finally setting in. I stayed at the hotel for 6 nights, not because I had nowhere to go, but because I needed space where nothing reminded me of her. No familiar smells, no pictures on the wall, no shared mugs in the kitchen. I kept the curtains shut and the TV off most of the time. I didn't go out drinking or start telling strangers about my problems. I just sat with it. All of it. The years we spent together. The slow unraveling I hadn't wanted to see. The moment it all broke apart. And somewhere in that silence, the anger that had been holding me upright finally thinned out, replaced by something more honest. Not relief, not closure. Just a blank sort of calm. Like I'd been walking around with a weight on my chest for months and didn't even realize it until it was gone. Emma called 3 times. I didn't pick up. She sent a few messages, none dramatic, just short updates. She'd made arrangements to stay at a friend's place. She wanted to know if we could talk again soon. She'd started therapy. I read each one, then muted her number. I wasn't interested in being updated on her progress. I wasn't the one she needed to convince anymore. On the 7th day, I went back to the house. She wasn't there. She'd left her key in an envelope on the counter, along with a handwritten list of things she was taking from the house. She was smart about it. No dramatics. No manipulation. Just a clean list and a key. I walked from room to room, noting the empty hangers in the closet, the missing cosmetics from the bathroom shelf, the space on the bookshelf where her cookbooks used to be. She hadn't touched anything that was mine, and I was grateful for that. I sat down at the kitchen table and stared out the window. The backyard looked the same. Nothing outside had changed. A few days later, we met at the lawyer's office to go over the paperwork. She came in looking smaller somehow, like she was trying to take up less space. We didn't hug, didn't ask how the other was doing. We sat on opposite ends of the table and went through the process. No arguments. No tricks. Just decisions. She wanted nothing from me except her personal items and whatever was already agreed upon. I signed the papers, handed them over, and stood up without looking at her. In the parking lot, she followed me to my car and asked if she could say something. I leaned against the door and nodded. I know saying sorry doesn't mean much, she began, but I mean it. I know I broke something that can't be fixed, and I don't expect you to ever forgive me, but I do hope someday you'll remember more than just how it ended. I took a long breath before answering. You don't get to decide what I remember. I'll take what I need from this and leave the rest. That's all anyone can do. I loved you, she said, voice thin. I know I didn't show it in the end, but I did. I opened the car door. Then maybe next time you'll treat love like something that matters. I got in and drove away without waiting for her to respond. Weeks passed. I updated my mailing address, moved some furniture around, took down old pictures, and packed them in a box I didn't label. I stopped checking social media. I worked longer hours. I went for walks in the evening without my phone. I ate alone, slept alone, and for the first time in a long while, I felt okay with it. I didn't need noise. I didn't need distraction. I just needed time and space and the freedom to feel what I was feeling without explaining it to anyone. I talked to my brother a few weeks later. He asked how I was holding up. I told him the truth. I'm not sad, I said. I thought I would be, but I'm not. I feel like I finally woke up from something I didn't know I was stuck in. Do you miss her? He asked. Sometimes, I admitted, but not in the way I expected. I miss who I thought she was, not who she turned out to be. We talked for a while longer. Then he invited me to visit for a weekend. I said I'd think about it. I wasn't ready to see people yet, not like that. I was still adjusting to the quiet. It didn't scare me anymore. A few nights ago, I found myself sitting outside in the backyard with a beer, watching the neighbor's porch light flicker on and off. Nothing profound happened. No realization. No breakdown. Just a quiet moment where I realized I hadn't thought about her all day. That was enough for me. That was progress. This isn't a story about getting even or starting fresh with someone new. It's just a story about a man who figured out the truth, dealt with it, and walked away without burning everything to the ground. I didn't win anything, but I didn't lose myself either. And maybe that's what matters most.